Look up at the night sky tonight. Just walk outside, find a dark spot away from the streetlights and stand there for a minute. Look up at all those tiny points of light. It is very easy, almost completely natural to feel like you are standing exactly in the center of a giant glorious dome. You feel the ground solid and unmoving beneath your feet, and it seems like the entire cosmos is a beautiful canopy painted up there just for you to look at. But I want you to do a little experiment right now. Right where you are, sitting or standing, just raise your hand in the air, wave it around. You feel the air rushing against your skin. You feel the weight of your arm pulling down. We call that gravity. We think we understand it, but what is it really? Most of the time we walk around completely blind to what is actually happening right in front of our noses. We think we feel gravity pulling us down, but what you are really feeling right now is the chair pushing you up. The electricity in the atoms of your pants is violently repelling the electricity in the atoms of the chair. You are hovering a tiny fraction of an inch above that seat because the electrons refuse to touch each other. It is all invisible fields and forces jiggling around, and that brings us to the biggest illusion of all. The grand illusion that we are the main characters of this whole cosmic setup. We have these stories, these ancient comforting human stories that say the entire universe, all those billions of stars, all that endless dark freezing space was created as a testing ground just for us. That some grand cosmic creator built a stage stretching billions of light years across just to watch a particular species of bipedal ape on a tiny wet rock figure out how to behave and whether or not they should eat a specific piece of fruit. But when you look at the real universe, the physical universe that we can actually measure and observe with our instruments, that story starts to look completely ridiculous. It looks intensely parochial. It looks exactly like a story told by people who had never left their own backyard and thought the horizon was the edge of reality. The universe is simply too big for that story to be true. Before we break down exactly why reality is far stranger and far more beautiful than any local myth, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We are going to look at how the world really works, not how we wish it worked. To understand how we got here, how we managed to break out of this tiny little mental box, we have to look back at the people who actually started measuring things instead of just guessing. Because for thousands of years, people just sat around in comfortable armchairs arguing about what the universe should be like. They thought, well, obviously the Earth is the center of everything and everything orbits us in perfect crystal circles because circles are mathematically perfect and humans are obviously the most important thing in existence. So we must be in the middle. But then someone like Galileo comes along. Galileo is a troublemaker. He does not just sit and think. He gets a piece of wood, he cuts a smooth groove in it and he rolls little brass balls down the groove. He measures them. He times them using his own pulse or a dripping water clock. Why does he do that? Because he wanted to see what nature actually does, not what ancient philosophers told him nature ought to do. He decides to look through a tube with some curved glass in it and he points it at Jupiter and he sees something that shatters the world. He sees little dots moving around Jupiter. Moons. They are orbiting something else. They are not orbiting us. Imagine that moment. Imagine looking through a piece of glass and realizing that the fundamental story you have been told your entire life by every authority figure is physically wrong. The universe has other centers of activity. It is not all spinning around you. But Galileo was just the beginning of the headache. Then comes Newton. Newton sits there and looks at the moon and he realizes something absolutely insane. He realizes that the force that makes an apple fall from a tree to the dirt is the exact same force that holds the moon in the sky. Why is that a crazy thought? Because before Newton, everyone thought the heavens were made of completely different stuff. They thought the sky was perfect, eternal, divine material and the earth was made of dirty, corrupt, temporary material. Newton says, no, it is all the exact same stuff. The moon is falling. It is constantly falling toward the earth. But it is moving sideways so fast that it keeps missing the edge of the world. He calculated it. The numbers matched perfectly. The universe was suddenly a giant mechanical clock. But there was a crack in Newton's beautiful clockwork system, a very deep flaw that bothered him until he died. Newton had this beautiful mathematical law for gravity, but he had absolutely no idea how it actually worked. How does the sun reach across millions of miles of empty nothingness and pull on the earth? Are there invisible strings stretching through space? Is it some kind of divine magic? Newton didn't know. He was intellectually honest enough to admit he didn't know. He just said, I frame no hypothesis. And for a long time, we just accepted that things could instantly affect other things across the universe. We thought the universe was like a giant theater stage and time was the universal clock on the wall ticking at the exact same moment for everyone everywhere. We thought there was a universal right now, but nature is absurd. Nature does not care about our common sense or our comfortable theater stage. It turns out that idea of an instant connection, a universal right now, is completely wrong. And we found that out not by looking at stars but by playing with wires and magnets in dirty laboratories. Look at Michael Faraday. Faraday was essentially uneducated in formal rigorous mathematics, but he had the most brilliant visual mind in the history of science. He looked at a magnet and he did not see spooky action at a distance. He saw invisible lines of force spreading out into space. He imagined that space itself wasn't empty. He imagined it was filled with something. A field. Imagine a giant invisible mattress stretching across the whole universe. If you push down heavily on one side of the mattress, a wave travels through the springs and eventually jiggles a bowling ball sitting on the other side of the room. That is what a field is. It is a condition of space. Space is boiling with this stuff. But why is this important? Why does playing with a magnetic field completely shatter our idea of the universe? Because the wave in the mattress takes time to travel from one side to the other. When you move an electron here on Earth, it creates a disturbance in the electromagnetic field, and that disturbance travels outward like ripples on a pond. It travels at a very specific unbreakable speed, the speed of light, 186,000 meters per second. That is not just the speed of light, that is the speed of causality, that is the speed of information. That is the ultimate speed limit of events happening. Think about what that actually means. If the sun suddenly popped out of existence right now, just completely vanished into thin air, we would not know about it. The Earth would keep happily orbiting a completely empty spot in space for 8 full minutes. We would still see the sun shining brightly in the blue sky for 8 minutes. We would feel its warmth. Why? Because the information, the lack of a gravitational pull, the lack of light has to travel through the fields of space. The news simply hasn't reached us yet. We are constantly looking at the past. When you look at the Andromeda galaxy, you are seeing light that has been traveling for 2.5 million years. You are looking at a ghost. We are completely isolated in our own little local bubble of time. This means there is no such thing as right now across the whole universe. You cannot possibly say what is happening on the other side of the galaxy right now because right now depends entirely on how you are moving through space. Imagine space and time welded together into a giant long block like a huge sausage. Every slice you make through the sausage is a moment in time, a snapshot of the universe. If you are standing still relative to me, you slice the sausage straight across. You have your version of what is happening everywhere right now. But if you start moving, if you get in a rocket ship and fly past me at high speed, your knife tilts. You slice the sausage at a totally different angle. Your right now includes events that I think are in my future and events that I think are in my past. It is like looking at overlapping wave patterns. Have you ever seen two fine pieces of wire mesh layered on top of each other or waves bouncing off a wall in a pool and crossing each other? When you move them, you see these strange shifting shimmering patterns emerge out of nowhere. They are called Mo patterns. The geometry of space and time is like those shifting patterns. How the universe looks, how the events line up chronologically depends entirely on your angle, your speed, your interaction with the fields. So where does the grand cosmic creator from our ancient stories fit into this shifting relativistic mess? Where is the central stage? If there is no universal right now, there is no single moment where the cosmos can stop and look at us. There is no absolute timeline where a cosmic play is unfolding from beginning to middle to end for everyone at once. The universe is a localized relativistic web of causality. It does not notice us because there is no universal mechanism for it to notice us as a whole. The left hand of the universe does not know what the right hand is doing until millions of years later. And then we come to the real problem, the problem of sheer scale, the overwhelming mind-melting disproportion of it all. This is the thing that really exposes how incredibly small our anthropocentric stories are. Let us just try to look at the size of the stage, the observable universe. Just the part we can see before the expansion of space hides the rest, is roughly 93 billion light-years across. It contains hundreds of billions of galaxies. Let that word sink in. Billions. Each of those individual galaxies contains hundreds of billions of fiery exploding stars. And around those stars are planets, trillions upon trillions of chunks of rock and gas spinning in the dark. Now, think about the religious stories that say this entire incomprehensible structure was made specifically for humans. Does that make any logical sense to you? Why would you build a stage that is 93 billion light-years wide just to have all the important universe-altering action happen on one microscopic speck of dust orbiting a completely average boring star in the quiet suburbs of a completely average galaxy? It is entirely out of proportion. It is like building a massive sports stadium that can hold 10 billion people, leaving the seats completely empty for 13.8 billion years, and then focusing all the stadium lights and all the cameras on two microscopic bacteria fighting over a sugar molecule out in the dark parking lot. It is absurd. If the universe was made for us, why is almost all of it instantly lethal to us? Why is it mostly empty vacuum filled with deadly radiation, freezing temperatures that would shatter your bones, and black holes that crush matter into absolute nothingness? It doesn't look like a cozy nursery designed carefully for human life. It looks exactly like a giant, violently active physical system doing what physical systems do blindly. It is atoms clumping together because of gravity, heating up, fusing, and exploding. It is a machine running on the blind laws of physics. And look at the time scale. The disproportion of time is even worse than the disproportion of space. The universe is almost 14 billion years old. Our planet, the Earth, sat here completely dead and boiling for billions of years. Then it cooled down and the oceans were filled with microscopic single-cell blobs that just jiggled around in the mud for a few billion more years doing absolutely nothing interesting. Then came the dinosaurs and they wandered around for hundreds of millions of years before they were randomly wiped out by a rock falling out of the sky. And finally, in the very last tiny microscopic fraction of a cosmic second, humans show up. We have been here for basically 0% of the universe's history. And yet, we have the unbelievable arrogance to think that the whole 14 billion year wait was just a prelude to us. That the creator of the cosmos was just sitting around in the dark for 13.9 billion years waiting for a primate to figure out how to invent writing so we could finally write down that we are his favorite things in the whole universe. It is a profound failure of imagination. These ancient stories were invented by people who honestly thought the world was a flat disk and the sky was a painted tent stretched over their heads. They did not know about galaxies. They did not know about atomic physics. They did not know about quantum mechanics or the speed of light. They wrote stories that perfectly fit the size of the tiny world they knew. And that is fine. It makes sense that they did that. But we know better now. We have looked through the giant telescopes. We have smashed atoms together at incredible speeds to see what falls out. We have measured the jiggling of the electrons to an accuracy of 1 part in a billion. We know the stage is too big for the play. Some people find this terrifying. They feel a deep existential dread when they realize this. They think, if the universe is this big, and if it wasn't made specifically for me, then I am nothing. I am just a meaningless collection of jiggling atoms in a cold, dark void. If you have never actually touched anything in your life, if every time you hug someone you love, it is just the electromagnetic fields of your atoms repelling the fields of their atoms across empty space, then what is the point of anything? Are we just totally isolated blurs of probability? But I think that is the completely wrong way to look at it. I think the scientific physical view of the world is far more beautiful, far more awe-inspiring and far more poetic than any ancient myth. Think about what you actually are based on the physics. You are not a separate special thing placed onto the earth from the outside. You are made of the earth. You are made of the universe. The atoms in your left hand probably came from a completely different star than the atoms in your right hand. Billions of years ago, massive stars burned through their fuel and exploded in violent supernovas, and they cooked up the carbon and the oxygen and the iron that is flowing inside your blood right this very second. That stuff drifted through the freezing vacuum of space for eons, gathered together by the blind pull of gravity, formed a hot rock, and eventually through billions of years of random chemical jiggling arrange itself into you. You are the universe. You are a localized, highly organized collection of cosmic dust that has somehow miraculously organized itself to the point where it can open its eyes, look back at the rest of the universe, and try to figure out how it works. The universe is not a giant machine that cares about you. It is a giant machine that produced you. You are the universe waking up and asking questions about itself. We do not know all the answers. We do not know why the rules of quantum mechanics are what they are. We do not know why the universe started expanding in the first place. We do not know why there is something instead of nothing. We just observe that it is there and it follows these bizarre counterintuitive rules. And that is okay. There is an immense wonderful freedom in saying I do not know. When you demand absolute certainty, when you demand a neat little story where you are the central character and everything happens for a reason, you close your mind to the actual messy wonders of nature. You stop looking. You stop experimenting. You just accept the easy answer. But when you accept that the universe is indifferent, that it is operating on complex physical laws that we are just beginning to uncover, every single discovery becomes a massive triumph. We are essentially monkeys sitting on a wet rock flying through space, and we have somehow figured out exactly how the stars burn. We have somehow figured out that light is a wave rippling in an invisible electromagnetic field. We can predict exactly where an electron will be. That is an unbelievable achievement. The fact that we can comprehend the universe at all is a miracle of physics. We don't need the universe to be small to feel important. We don't need to be the center of attention of a cosmic creator. The disproportion of the universe is not an insult to human dignity. It is the greatest puzzle we have ever been given. It forces us to grow up. It forces us to look outwards. So keep looking at the stars. Keep asking why things happen. Do not settle for the easy, small, parochial stories that put you in the center. The real truth of nature is far more weird, far more absurd, and far more beautiful than anything the human mind could have ever invented on its own. If you want to keep exploring how this crazy physical world actually operates, if you want to keep breaking down your flawed intuition and building it back up with real physics, make sure you share this video. Send it to someone who needs a little cosmic perspective, someone who needs to see the bigger picture. Remember, nature doesn't care what you believe. Nature doesn't care about your common sense. It just keeps on jiggling and following the rules. Keep thinking, keep questioning the world around you, and I will see you in the next.